What is up, guys? UFC 280 is now only 3 days away. I cannot wait. I got a great show in store for you guys. We're going to break down the card, and we got some news around the octagon as always. You guys are going to want to stay tuned for this one.
That is a which is fun, but you've got to be ready for that. But it's not.
And what is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Fist First. As always, I am your host, Steve, and we are streaming here on DSM Media's YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. Guys, please do not forget to hit that like, follow, subscribe button. As always, it will help us out tremendously. Now, UFC 280, I've been preaching to tune into this fight, or this card, I should say, for quite some time now, and the day is finally here where I can preview it for you guys. Now, before we get into all the ensuing chaos, as always, we're going to start off with a little bit of UFC news around the octagon. So the UFC finally prohibits fighters from betting on the UFC. Now, if you guys did not know, the UFC originally allowed fighters to bet on other fights. They cannot do that anymore. And this extends to friends and family. The reason I bring this up is because it's kind of it's curious to me that the UFC is extending this to friends as well. So friends of the fighters cannot bet on the UFC. I'm not sure if I entirely like that, but I mean, I guess it is what it is. That's the UFC's call. That's what they're doing. So fighters are now prohibited to bet on other fights in the UFC, which I think was pretty common throughout the past couple, I guess, really since legal betting has come about. A lot of fighters were placing bets on other fights. Now, going back a couple weeks, Mark Zuckerberg had rented out the entire UFC Apex. That was during the fight night, Dern versus Jan. And we were, I was wondering into my show why he did this. Was he potentially fighting? Um, was it something Facebook related? And we finally got our answer after a week or two here. So UFC and Facebook has teamed up to do VR streaming, which is, I mean, I'm not super into the VR streaming world, but I guess if you are into that, it's a pretty cool idea that you could put on your headset and you'd be like your UFC ringside. So guys, you could check that out. I believe that's on Facebook's VR. I'm not really too sure what Facebook's VR headset is. I'm not too well informed on that kind of stuff, but you can now stream, or if not now, pretty soon you'll be able to stream the UFC in your VR headset, which is pretty cool to me. Will I do it? Probably not. I don't really see a point of putting a whole headset on to watch the UFC. But hey, if that's what you're into, guys, you can do it and be ringside technologically, I guess. Now, 2023, I talked about being a stacked year with international fight nights. We got a couple of pay-per-views. Got one in Brazil in January. February, got a pay-per-view in Australia. You might potentially have a pay-per-view in England in March. And now the UFC just announced a UFC fight night looking like February 4th taking place in South Korea. So we got another tack onto the board of international fight cards for next year. That is making 2023 just that much more exciting for UFC fans. Now, we do have some massive implications that Dana White just came out and said the past couple days, and implications on this UFC 280 card. So, first of the two I got for you guys, Dana White comes out and says the winner of Jan versus O'Malley is going to get a shot at the bantamweight belt regardless of who wins. So obviously on this UFC 280 card, you have Aljamain Sterling taking on TJ Dillashaw for the bantamweight gold. Whoever wins that fight is taking on the winner of Peter Yan versus Sean O'Malley. Now, this is interesting to me because I am Sean O'Malley. I'm a huge Sean O'Malley fan. He's probably my favorite fighter right now. And I do believe, as much as I love O'Malley, I do believe this is a little bit too soon for him. I think if he beats Peter Yan, it would obviously be the biggest win of his career. It would be. But I still think he's haunted a little bit by the ghost of Cheeto Vera. I think before he gets a shot, I think he has to prove to the UFC and he has to prove to the crowd and the fans and his followers that he's over that and he needs to fight Cheeto Vera and beat him once and for all to finally move on for the belt. That's just my opinion. If you guys think differently, comment below. But I really do think it's a little bit too soon for O'Malley, even if he beats Peter Yan. It would be kind of disrespectful for people like Corey Sandhagen, for Cheeto Vera. It would probably be a little bit disrespectful to those two guys, if O'Malley gets that opportunity. But I guess we will see how that plays out. Of course, O'Malley will have to beat Peter Yan first. But another implication made by Dana White regarding this card. I said Alex Volkanovski will be your champion of the lightweight division next year. Then I said he's your official backup for the main event here at UFC 280. But now it is officially coming to life. It is officially real. Dana White announces Alex Volkanovski will take on the winner of Oliveira versus Makhachev for the lightweight title come next year. Guys, we talked about that UFC pay-per-view in Australia in February. You got your main event. It's going to be Alex Volkanovski fighting for lightweight gold to become a double champ in his homeland of Australia. I cannot wait for February, and I cannot wait for this main event to see who he's going to be taking on. To be honest, I'm not sure who I like Volkanovski to face more, but I guess we will get our answer as to who it will be come Saturday afternoon or morning, wherever you are, because we do have an early pay-per-view for UFC 280. It does start at 10 a.m. for the prelims and 2 p.m. East. This is all Eastern time for the main card. So we got an earlier than usual fight pay-per-view. That's due to this fight card being in Abu Dhabi. And guys, let's move right into it, into the preliminary card. Guys, we got a lot of fights to break down today. And we're going to start off right here with the very first fight of the night. This is the opening fight to start off UFC 280. Carol Rosa taking on Lena Landsberg in your women's bantamweight division. Now, this is a very interesting fight to me because I think for a female fight, I think this is going to be an excellent opener to this UFC 280 card with a lot of potential action. So Carol Rosa came out and said she's going to be missing her head trainer in her corner due to personal issues. She doesn't expect that to affect her in this fight, but it is a big loss having your head trainer not there on the sidelines for you. Now, she also came out and said that she's expecting a stand-up battle with Lena Landsberg, which is kind of interesting to me. Because although Carol Rosa is a very efficient striker, she's very efficient in Muay Thai. She's also pretty good on the ground, and I think she would have a huge advantage over Lena Landsberg on the ground if she took it there. But Rosa does come out and say she's expecting a stand-up battle. So is that is that just a little fake out? I'm not sure. Because we're talking about Alina Landsberg, who got dominated by Sarah McMahon on the ground. She let up over 13 minutes of ground control to Sarah McMahon. So obviously, Lena Landsberg is susceptible and struggles with her ground game. So I'm curious to see as to why Rosa came out and said she's expecting a stand-up battle. I don't think so. I think she's going to take her down. Maybe win this one by decision. Now, if this is a stand-up battle, I do like Rosa by knockout. Either way, I'm taking Rosa over Lena Landsberg. whether it's knockout or if she takes her to the ground and just dominates her on the ground and it goes to decision. Either way, Carol Rosa's winning this fight. And when she wins, she's probably going to get a high ranked opponent. So that makes this fight all the better. The very first card has implications in the women's bantamweight division. How much better can that get? A first fight with implications. That's going to be an awesome, awesome opener to UFC 280. Now, this next fight, I don't really have a lot to say about it. I think it's going to be pure and utter domination. You got Muhammad Mokaev taking on Malcolm Gordon in that flyweight division. Now, Mokaev, as you guys know, is 2-0, sitting at 22 years old. Probably one of the best or one of the most promising UFC prospects. A very, very good wrestler. Taking on Malcolm Gordon, who's 32 years old. So there's a 10-year age gap. Now, Gordon's also good on the ground. He's got great jiu-jitsu. I think this fight's going to be spent for the majority on the ground. I think Muhammad Mokaev dominates that fight on the ground. I think he can keep up with Gordon's experience. I think Mokaev has the talent to overtake Gordon's experience. I think this one's going to be quick. I think this one's going to be easy. I have Muhammad Mokaev taking this one by submission in the very first round, if not the first 2 minutes. It's going to be the first round finish by Mokaev. I think this one's going to end very quick, very easy. That's the second fight in this pay-per-view event. Now, moving on to another fight I'm not super, super hype about. We got relatively new faces here. Armen Petrosian taking on AJ Dobson in the middleweight division. Now you got Petrosian, who's 1-1 in the UFC. He's a very good kickboxer, has a pretty good Muay Thai. Now the problem is he's going to be at a 5-inch reach disadvantage to AJ Dobson. But with Petrosian being a kickboxer, I would look for Petrosian to use his legs a lot to keep Dobson at bay. But that's easier said than done. Dobson's going to be able to utilize his distance. In his last fight, he landed 87% of strikes from distance. AJ Dobson clearly knows how to manage that, is clearly going to take full advantage of his reach advantage. I like Dobson here. I don't think Dobson has the power to knock Petrosian out. So with that being said, I think I like Dobson here by decision. He's going to maintain the distance. He's going to get the win. It's going to be decision. AJ Dobson in that third fight in the preliminary card. The next fight there is a Russian battle, an all-Russian battle. And forgive me if I mispronounce these names. These are very complex names to pronounce. First one's not so bad. Abu Nurmagomedov taking on Ghazi Omargadzaev. Again, I'm sorry if I butcher those names. This is taking place in the welterweight division. You got Nurmagomedov, indicated by that last name, a pretty strong wrestler. But he is an efficient striker as well, lands about 61% of his strikes. I think if this goes to the ground, though, he will have the advantage over Omar Gadzaev. Also, Omar Gadzaev is moving down a weight class. He's moving down from that middleweight division. So he has to cut a little bit more than usual. We saw recently the UFC Hall of Famer Cub Swanson take a pretty bad injury after moving down. It's not an easy thing to do. So I do like Nurmagomedov in this fight. I think he can out-wrestle Omar Gadzaev. I think he has a slight advantage on the feet. And plus, Omar Gadzaev with the effect on the body of a weight cut, at least more than he's used to, I think it's going to take a toll. I got Nurmagomedov. I can't say by which method I like because I think realistically, Nurmagomedov can end this fight in any way. He can knock him out. He can submit him. He can also take this to decision and get the win. So via any victory, I'm taking Abu Nurmagomedov in this all-out Russian battle. Now moving on to this next fight here, I think a lot of people have this listed as a potential fight of the night, if not a potential fight, the best fight on the preliminary card. That's Tugokov. Sorry if I mispronounced that name. Taking on Lucas Almeida. Now, Tugokov's a very, very well-rounded fighter. He can beat you standing up. He can beat you on the ground. But the big problem with him is he hasn't fought since last October. He's going to have ring rust. And I think, as we saw, as we see time and time again, people with long layoffs like to take the fights to the ground. So I think that's what you're going to see Tugokov do in this fight. He's going to try to take Almeida down. Now, if that happens, that's going to be very advantageous for him because Almeida is very good on the feet. He's not very great on the ground. So you got a wrestler taking on a more stand-up fighter in Almeida. Almeida's going to look to keep this on the feet. And Almeida is going to have a 3-inch reach advantage. So it's all about maintaining the distance for him. Almeida's going to have to keep Tugakov at bay to keep this fight standing. I think he's going to be able to do that. And I like the underdog in Lucas Almeida here by knockout. Again, guys, this has a fight of the night potential. Because this fight could be potentially a stand-up fight as much as I think Tugokov's going to take it to the ground, it does have that potential to be a fist fight. And if that happens, it's got firework potential here as the fifth fight on this UFC 280 preliminary card. Definitely going to want to tune into that one. Now moving on to some familiar names here in the preliminary. In that light heavyweight division, you got Volkan Ozdemir taking on Nikita Krylov. Now, I think most people are familiar with Volkan Ozdemir, right? Back in 2018, he fought Daniel Cormier for the light heavyweight title, sorry. Now, Ozdemir fell off pretty significantly after that loss to Cormier, but he's coming off of a huge, huge win over Paul Craig. And this guy deserves a lot of respect in Volkan Ozdemir because he has yet to face an unranked opponent in his entire UFC career. And he's sitting currently at number 8 in that light heavyweight division. This guy has excellent fight IQ. He's an excellent striker. And I think he's going to have to be able to keep this one, or I think he's going to have to utilize his fight IQ to keep this one on the feet because Nikita Krylov is going to look to take this to the ground. Now, Nikita Krylov is another ranked opponent for Ozdemir. Krylov sitting currently at number 10 in the division. Like I said, Krylov's most likely going to look to take this fight to the ground, but he certainly does have the capability to win this if it's a fist fight. Guys, this is another potential banger. It should be a very, very close fight. I think Volkan Ozdemir is the smarter fighter here, and I think in a bout like this where it's so tight, I think I have to give the edge to the fighter that has the higher IQ, and that's why I'm going Volkan Ozdemir, and I think he's going to get this win by decision if he can keep this one standing, which is going to be a tough task, but I got Volkan Ozdemir. I think he's winning this one by decision. I'm locking that one in. Now down to the last 2 fights of the preliminary card. You got Makhmud Muradov taking on Caio Borralho. Now Muradov was on a 14-fight professional win streak before losing in his last fight. He is currently sitting at 3-1 in the UFC. Obviously, with that stat of 14 straight wins, he's a very experienced fighter who can easily dominate fights. Now you look at the person that he's standing opposite of in Caio Borralho, and this is going to be Borralho's hardest test yet. A guy with a lot more experience than him, and I'm curious to see Borralho's game plan moving forward because he could probably compete standing up, but that would be risky. I think Barallo has to take this one to the ground. So I'd look for a lot of takedown attempts by Caio Barallo. I think if he's able to take it to the ground, he has that potential to win via submission. But if this fight stays standing and Barallo tries to fist fight Muradov, I think Muradov's going to knock him out. So Barallo's fight IQ is going to be tested big time here. This would be the biggest win of his career. And like I said, if he can get this fight to the ground, he's going to beat Muradov. But if Muradov can keep this standing, he's going to beat Barallo. So this is another very interesting fight um, as the co-main event of this preliminary card here. Now, the preliminary headliner, a name that I've mentioned a lot before, Sean Brady, the Philly boy, taking on Bilal Muhammad. Guys, this is going to be an absolute banger of a fight. I cannot wait for this fight. Obviously, Sean Brady being a Philly boy, undefeated professionally, 5-0 in the UFC, taking on a super riser in Bilal Muhammad, a guy who climbed the ranks very, very quickly. Going to be a great fight. I cannot wait for this fight. But before I really break this fight down, I want to say props to Bilal Muhammad for taking this fight. I think Muhammad's a guy that deserves to start fighting up in ranking, but he's taken on a difficult opponent lower than him. So this is a very big risk for Muhammad. So props for him for taking this fight. Now, Bilal Muhammad has been training with Khabib, which is very, very interesting. Khabib, obviously known as one of the best wrestlers in the UFC. Now, I think with Bilal Muhammad training with Khabib, I think you kind of know his game plan moving in, right? You got Sean Brady, who is an excellent, excellent wrestler. So Bilal Muhammad is obviously training to stuff Sean Brady on the ground and limit the wrestling. But it's also interesting to see if Muhammad becomes aggressive with his wrestling, if he is able to stuff Sean Brady. It's going to be very interesting to see what he does moving forward or moving into this fight. Now, I really do believe Sean Brady, no matter what, even if Muhammad trains with Khabib, I do believe Sean Brady will be able to outmatch Muhammad in his wrestling. That's why I believe Muhammad training with Khabib is more of a prevention more than an attack. I think he's trying to prevent the takedowns. I think he's trying to prevent any advancements on the ground. I don't think he's training with Khabib for the offensive aspect of wrestling. So I do think though Sean Brady will be able to outmatch Muhammad in the wrestling game. But here's the more interesting thing with me for Sean Brady is obviously he's known as a wrestler. I I have a slight feeling that Sean Brady's going to try to make this a fist fight. I think early on in this fight, you're going to see Sean Brady try to take down, right? Get Bilal Muhammad nervous of the takedowns, get his eyesight lower, and then he's going to start striking with those hands. Now, can he win a fist fight with Bilal Muhammad? I don't know. I don't really believe Sean Brady's, boxing has been tested as much as it would be in this fight. Actually, no, it never has. This would be his toughest boxing match if it turns into that. So, very curious fight. Obviously, I'm going to be cheering for Sean Brady being that Philly boy. And the winner of this fight has pretty big implications too. It is suspected, it is not confirmed, but it is expected that the winner of this fight is going to fight Hamzat Chimaev in a title eliminator if Chimaev does not make that move to middleweight. So guys, this fight could have huge implications. You could be looking at your next title contender potentially. And one more thing to note here, Bilal Muhammad comes out and says he hates everything about Philly. Guys, we got the Phillies on soon. We got the Eagles undefeated. We got the Union playoffs. We got the Sixers who are stacked. We got the Flyers who are surprisingly looking solid at 3-0. Bilal Muhammad, I got no respect for a man that doesn't love Philly. And I think Sean Brady's going to give you a little bit of that Philly love because Sean Brady's going to win this fight and he's going to make Bilal Muhammad tap out. And if he doesn't tap out, Sean Brady's going to knock him out. Welcome him with a little taste to Philly. Sean Brady's getting the win. Preliminary headliner. Call my shot. Now time for the main card. I will say I'm surprised that Bilal Muhammad and Sean Brady got taken off that main card. I do believe that they were originally slated to be the opener of the main card, but they are not anymore. They got bumped down to that preliminary headliner. And your new first fight in the main card is Caitlin Chukagian taking on Manon Fiorot. And this is an interesting fight for me because Chukagian is actually the underdog in this fight. Now, I say that's kind of shocking because if Valentina Shevchenko was not in this division, Chukagian's the champ. She is. I don't think anybody in this division, at least in the last couple months, I really do think Caitlin Chukagian would be your champ if Valentina Shevchenko was not in this division. So it's very curious to me that she is an underdog and she's currently sitting at plus 170 on DraftKings, which is very, very shocking to me. She's taking on Manon Fiorot, who's a relatively new face to the UFC as a whole, but she is looking for a UFC career-defining win against Caitlin Chukagian. So, guys, I'm going to break this fight down for you. So, how can Chukagian win this fight? All right, Chukagian's coming in with a 3-inch reach advantage. She's a very well-rounded kickboxer. So, with that being said, she has the reach advantage. Maintain distance. Using your legs. Do not let Fiorot get inside on you. You can. It's much more easier to maintain distance with your legs. Now, here's the thing that worries me a little bit about Chukagian is she is facing a southpaw opponent in Fiorot. That's going to be difficult for her to manage. But you have to use your hands. You have to use your legs. You have to manage your damage. You cannot get over aggressive. You have to keep her at bay. And eventually, if you do all these things, you're going to wear Fiorot out. Now, there is a problem with that is the longer this fight goes, I do believe the more it favors Fiorot. I think stamina is going to play a huge role for Caitlin Chukagian. I'm not sure, if she's going to be able to keep up with Fiorot's pace. Now, obviously, Chukagian's not known for finishing, so she is used to going the distance. But I think Fiorot is going to present her with a very, very high amount of pace, a high level of pace that she's not used to. So I do think stamina for Chukagian is going to play a big role in this fight. Now, when it comes to Fiorot, how can she win? I got 2 words for you: speed and power. Right? Fiorot is going to be at a reach disadvantage, so she's going to have to be quick on her feet. She's going to have to be able to execute her entries to land those power shots. If she can execute her entries quick, in and out, she's going to soften up Chukagian, which is going to allow her to land those power shots. Now, if she's able to land these power shots, she's going to throw Chukagian off balance. And what happens when somebody's off balance? You shoot your takedown. So Fiorot, in my opinion, I do like Fiorot's possibility to win here. I do like her skill set a little more. I think she's going to push with an incredible pace. But with that being said, I love, love, love the value of Chukagian on DraftKings. She's sitting at a plus 170. In a fight that's most likely to go the distance, I do like Chukagian's value, even with the stamina aspect. I do think she's going to be able to keep Faro at bay. Chukagan's going to be able to utilize her experience. I do believe Chukagan wins this one, and it is going to be by decision. So, guys, at a plus 170, I'm taking the risk on Chukagan here. I can't believe she's the underdog. I just hope she doesn't get over aggressive and cannot and has struggles maintaining distance because that is a recipe for her to lose. But like I said, she is well experienced in the UFC. So I do think she's going to be able to have that fight IQ to take this one to decision without depleting too much stamina and secure the win via unanimous. Now the second fight here, Beneil Dariush taking on Mateusz Gamrot. Not gonna lie, I'm not super excited for this one. And before I get into this fight, first of all, why is Dariush so triggered about his hype in this division? I don't get it. This is in the lightweight division. I don't get his hype. Like, I don't get why people or why he thinks people should be praising him. Right? He comes out and says, Beneil Dariush comes out and says, it would be an absolute clown show if Michael Chandler gets a title opportunity with a win over Dustin Poirier. Dude, Dariush isn't even close to talent, in my opinion. He isn't even close talent wise to the top guys in this division. I think any one of those guys would take him down, whether it's Oliveira, I'll even throw Magachev in there, Poirier, Gaethje, and any of these guys in the lightweight division. I think has an easy time with Beneil Dariush. Beneil Dariush hasn't fought anybody. If you want to say, oh, he fought Tony Ferguson, or he beat Tony Ferguson, dude, calm down. Tony Ferguson's, you see it in his last couple fights. He's old and he's aged. He just doesn't have that anymore. And I'm not discrediting how much of a star Tony Ferguson is and how much talent Tony Ferguson has, but it just happens with age. He's not there anymore. Dariush needs to calm down. He cannot come out and make these statements when he doesn't really have much of a resume to show for it, at least recently. Now, with that being said, how can Dariush win this fight? Obviously, we know Gamrot is a very pacey fighter. He's a very up in your face. He can run circles around your opponent. Now, how do you counter that? Well, Dariush is going to have to invest in the body. He's going to have to invest in the body and the legs, right? Like I said, Gamrot's a very active fighter. He will and he is capable of running circles around Dariush. So Dariush needs to pick his shots. He needs to wear Gamrot out, invest in the body, invest in the legs, and then once you did that, Dariush, once you wear him down, you got to take it to the ground, where I do believe you have a pretty decent advantage there on the ground. Now, can Dariush do that? If you couldn't tell by my last rant, I'm not his biggest fan. I don't think he can, and I do think Gamrot will run circles around him in this fight. Now, what does Gamrot have to do? Like I said, Gamrot can run circles. So Gamrot needs to pressure, pressure, pressure. He needs to keep this fight moving at a very fast rate. He needs to control the octagon and let Beneil Dariush become his own worst enemy and fall victim to his cardio. Now, once Dariush does get tired, he's going to look for takedowns. He's going to look for clinch opportunities. So Gamrot needs to be able to stuff these, but he also needs to be able to utilize them. Right? If this fight goes to the ground, it's very closely matched. But if Gamrot can stuff takedowns and work on the back of Dariush, you're only going to further Dariush's stamina drain. Like I said, you're going to let him fall victim to his cardio. I think that's exactly what happens here. I love Gamrot by decision. I really don't think this is a close fight. I think it's 30-27 by all three judges by the end of it. And Gamrot is sitting at a minus 195. Not terrible value for him over on DraftKings. Guys, I love Gamrot by decision in this fight. Now to move on to the big dogs of the night, the top 3 fights, the fights that everybody cannot wait for. The first out of the 3 being my favorite fighter, Sean O'Malley, taking on Petr Yan. Now, Petr Yan, it's going to be a tough test for Sean O'Malley. But also, Petr Yan, I do believe, should be your bantamweight division champion right now. He fell to a very, very controversial loss to Aljamain Sterling in his last fight for gold. I I I truly do believe Petr Yan won that fight. I was shocked when they announced Aljamain Sterling's name. But regardless, he's not the champ. But with a win here, he does get another opportunity. Now, Sean O'Malley did come out and say that Petr Yan was bullied into taking this fight with him. Is that, is that true? Did the UFC bully Petr Yan into this fight? I don't think so. I don't think this is a fight Petr Yan necessarily wanted, but I think he's doing what he has to do to get another chance for UFC gold. I do love Sean O'Malley, but I do respect Petr Yan a lot. I think a lot of people lost respect for him after that illegal knee when he lost the belt to Aljamain Sterling. But guys, Petr Yan is always putting in the work. He's a very, very talented fighter. Now, my routes to victory for each of these guys are mostly mental. Because Sean O'Malley is like a Conor McGregor in a way. I don't think he's like necessarily as obnoxious as McGregor. But O'Malley does like to mess with the mind pre-fight. So with that being said, what does Petr Yan have to do to win this fight? One, he has to utilize his experience. He is much more experienced than O'Malley, especially being the champion of this division for a bit and fighting the top dogs. He's fought much tougher opponents than O'Malley has. So he's got to utilize his experience. You got to believe that with that experience comes higher IQ. So he has to utilize that. Now, another thing with the mind that he has to do is he has to keep his composure. Sean O'Malley is going to come out with a lot of fire. So Petr Yan has to be expecting a lot of pressure and a lot of hard shots thrown early from Sean O'Malley. So if Petr Yan can stay composed and pick his shots and simply just let Sean O'Malley deplete his gas tank, he has the potential to finish this fight late. So like I said, it's a very mental fight for both these fighters. Petr Yan needs to utilize his IQ and needs to stay composed. Now, Sean O'Malley, also very mental fight for him. He has to stay humble. He has to realize that Petr Yan is a tough guy to knock out. Petr Yan's only been knocked out once in his professional career, and that came all the way back in 2014. So you have to respect that fact. Sean O'Malley also has to respect the fact that Petr Yan is a talented fighter. Sean O'Malley cannot get over aggressive because Petr Yan will capitalize on that. Like I said, Petr Yan's fight IQ, Petr Yan's composure. You have to stay humble in this fight, Sean O'Malley. And not only humble, you have to stay calm. Yan is going to land power shots, and you're going to be made vulnerable. But you cannot let those power shots get to your head. You cannot get hit hard, and you cannot get angry because that is only going to leave you more vulnerable. So stay humble, stay calm. And my last point for Sean O'Malley is manage your pressure. Do not come out super over the top, super aggressive, and look to finish this fight in the first round. I'm sorry, it's not going to happen. Hey, maybe he proves me wrong. I love Sean O'Malley. I would love to see a first round knockout, but against Petr Yan, it's probably not going to happen. So Sean O'Malley has to manage his pressure. He has to control the pace of the fight. He's coming in with a 5-inch reach advantage. He has to utilize that. He can't do too much. You could throw power, but pick your power shots. Don't let Petr Yan make you vulnerable at his 5-inch reach disadvantage. So stay humble, stay calm, manage pressure. I think if Sean O'Malley wins this fight, it would show tremendous growth for him as a fighter. And to be honest, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. To be honest, I really don't think he has much to lose. Like, he's fighting the number one contender when I don't even believe, I could be wrong here. I could double check my facts here, but I do believe that Sean O'Malley's not even ranked in the top 10. Let me check here over at UFC.com. Now, with that being said, if this is correct, which it's where are we at here, bantamweight? Yeah, it's right. So Sean O'Malley's sitting at number 11. He's fighting the number one ranked contender in Peter Yan. So really, Sean O'Malley doesn't have a whole lot to lose, in my opinion, but he has a whole lot to gain with a win here. And I love Sean O'Malley's value over at DraftKings. He's sitting at a plus 225. I do believe that is the biggest underdog on the main card. Again, I will double check that for you guys, but I do believe that he's the biggest underdog on the main card. Let's see here. And that is correct. He is the biggest underdog on the main card. That's tremendous value for Sean O'Malley. And like I said, I think he wins, but he has to stay humble, he has to stay calm, and he has to manage his pressure. Now, moving on to the co-main event, and this is that bantamweight gold fight. The winner, like I said, the winner of that previous fight, O'Malley versus Yan, is going to take on the winner of this fight. We got Aljamain Sterling taking on TJ Dillashaw, the battle for bantamweight gold. Now, no, if you have been with the UFC for a while, you know TJ Dillashaw has struggles with PEDs, right? He got his belt stripped away from him. I believe that was back in 2019 or 2018. After after getting his belt stripped, he got knocked out, or he lost to Henry Cejudo. He took a 2-year hiatus from the UFC, came back, got an instant shot at the number 2 contender and Corey Sandhagen at the time. He beat him, and now he's a shot at reclaiming gold. So is that too quick of a return for a guy that got, in trouble for using PEDs? It's tough, but I'd say no. I don't think it's too soon. I think this is a good storyline for the UFC. It's a good storyline for Dillashaw, right? He's coming back. He's looking to win fair and square. So from that kind of perspective, I don't think it's too soon. I think there's other guys that deserve it more than him, but he gets a shot, and he was a previous champ before, so it does make for an interesting fight. Now, how can TJ Dillashaw win this fight? How can TJ Dillashaw reclaim that bantamweight gold that he sought after so much recently? And I think this is going to come to a surprise to most people, and I don't know if people will agree with me necessarily, but TJ Dillashaw has to be effective on his feet, right? Both of these fighters are predominantly wrestlers. I think Dillashaw will be able to match Sterling's wrestling. So if you match that, if you match wrestling, if you match the ground game, the ultimate decider of the fight is the stand-up game. It's the striking. And I think TJ Dillashaw has the advantage in the striking game. And he could definitely land some power shots on Sterling. Now, how can he be effective on his feet, though? He's going to have to stay close to Sterling. Do not let Aljo get distance. Because obviously we know, it's very frustrating. When Aljo gets distance, all he wants to do is take you down. That's it. I hate him for that. I really do not like Aljamain Sterling. That's all he looks to do is take you down a distance. But if TJ Dillashaw can stay close to him, and keep him uneasy, he's going to have the striking advantage. And I do think that this fight is going to come down to striking. You have two great wrestlers. So that pretty much cancels out each other. So it's going to come down to striking where Dillashaw will have the advantage. Now, with that being said, how does Aljamain Sterling win this fight? And he has to do the BS that he always does. He has to get to the back ASAP. I hate listing this as the key to victory for him. But Aljamain Sterling is a backpacker, right? And what that means is he likes to jump on people's backs and literally just just cling to people's backs. It's really annoying. Now, this isn't going to be an easy task for him because, like I said, TJ Dillashaw is very efficient in his wrestling as well. But if you want to make TJ Dillashaw uneasy, you have to attack the back. You have to. And when you get to the back, you work your game. You get TJ Dillashaw uneasy. You wait for him to make a mistake, and you land a submission attempt. This is going to be a great fight. And to be honest, I really don't like either of these fighters. You got Sterling, who's sitting at a minus 175 over on DraftKings. TJ Dillashaw is at a plus 150. I don't know if I like the value for Dillashaw. I don't really want him. I really don't want either of these fighters to win. But if I had to put money on it, I do think Sterling wins this fight. No, I'm changing it. I think I'm taking Dillashaw here. I think I'm taking Dillashaw only because if he can make this a stand-up fight, he's going to win. He's going to beat Aljo. He's probably going to knock him out. Yeah, it's tough to say. I think I like Dillashaw here at plus 150. Why not? Might as well. If I think it's going to come down to striking, I got to stick behind that. So I'm taking Dillashaw here. Again, I don't really like either fighter, but if I have to pick one, I think I'd have to go with the positive odds and back up my prediction. So Dillashaw, I'm taking Dillashaw there. Yep, going to be a good fight, especially if you like grappling. It's probably going to be a grapplers battle. And speaking of grapplers battle, the main event here of UFC 280, Charles Oliveira taking on Islam Makhachev, could be another potential grappling battle. Now, this main event, Charles Oliveira taking on Islam Makhachev, is a very, very interesting main event. Obviously, this is for the vacant lightweight title. Again, nobody is the champion of this division because Charles Oliveira got it stripped from him. But here's the interesting thing. Does Islam Makhachev really deserve this opportunity? Charles Oliveira came out and said that Makhachev only got the shot because of his relations with Khabib. So does Makhachev deserve this opportunity to fight for lightweight gold? And the answer is plain and simple. It's no. He does not deserve this. Now you can criticize that statement all you want, but at the end of the day, Makhachev, how do you get? Let me put it this way: how do you get to fight for the gold? You work your way up the rankings. You fight and you beat the top guys of the division. And guess what? Makhachev hasn't done that. He hasn't fought any top contender yet. He got this opportunity by default because Charles Oliveira was rolling through the division. Nobody in this division could keep up with Oliveira's grappling skills. So the UFC needed a guy that could. Islam Makhachev's that guy. So Islam Makhachev gets the shot by default. I don't agree with it, but I guess it's what the UFC had to do to stop Oliveira from steamrolling this division with his grappling skills. But for Islam Makhachev to win this fight, I don't think he necessarily wins it on the ground, which I think is an interesting comment to make. But I think he wins this fight by utilizing his hands. Now, as we know, and we saw in Oliveira's last couple fights, especially that first round with Michael Chandler, Charles Oliveira is very susceptible to getting hit, right? Charles Oliveira has very center line of movement. He doesn't move his head a lot. He's very susceptible to get big, heavy shots landed on him. But that's because he doesn't care. If he gets knocked down, nobody in that lightweight division would get on top and work the ground against him. Nobody wanted to do that. So as long as Oliveira didn't get knocked out, he was comfortable. Now, here's the thing. Makhachev can compete with Oliveira on the ground. And if he utilizes his hands and he wobbles Oliveira, he's going to win. But he has to utilize his hands first. He has to wear and tear Oliveira's head. Because I think If he doesn't, and both men go fresh on the ground, I think Oliveira has the advantage. Now, Russian or not, Khabib, friends with Khabib or not, I think Charles Oliveira does have the advantage on the ground. So how does Charles Oliveira win this fight? One is pressure. I mentioned this, a lot of times, but you need to pressure Makhachev. But you cannot make yourself susceptible to that. Charles Oliveira has to learn the head movement. If he can manage his head movement and limit the amount of strikes absorbed, he's going to be able to take this fight to the ground and probably win. Now, with that being said, if that does happen, Oliveira doesn't get hit, doesn't get wobbled, takes Makhachev to the ground fairly easily with both guys fresh. I think Oliveira can win that battle, but Oliveira has to be active on the ground, right? Whenever you're going up against a fellow grappler, you have to be active. You cannot sit in one spot because eventually that opponent is going to be able to turn the tides of that grappling situation. So you have to constantly be throwing new positions his way, constantly be moving on the ground, and eventually you're going to find an opening as long as you can be it's not even a word, but as long as you can over be out or you can out active the other wrestler, right? That's not a word, but I'm throwing it in there. You have to be more active than Makachev. You're going to find an opening. You'd be able to win this one by submission, which I think is going to happen. As crazy as that sounds, I do think Charles Oliveira, the underdog for some reason, Charles Oliveira, sitting at a plus 160 on DraftKings, is going to make you some money on Saturday night. He's going to beat Islam Makhachev, and that's going to end your UFC 280 in Oliveira submitting Makhachev, and then he's going to go take on Alex Volkanovski in February. Now, guys, like I said, I've been hyping this card up for a while. I hope it pays off for all of our sakes. I think this is a card that is not going to let us down. Like I said, do not miss this pay per view. Get some friends together, split the money. It'll be a lot cheaper. And tune in to what's going to be a lot of excellent fights come Saturday afternoon. Like I said, Eastern Time, the preliminaries start at 10 a.m. The main card, I should say, starts at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Do not miss it, guys. And I will catch you on Monday night when I break down, hopefully, what came out to be a super, super chaotic, exciting Saturday night. Guys, do not forget to check us out Monday night. As always, thank you guys for watching. I cannot wait to sit and watch the chaos with all you guys. And I cannot wait to review it on Monday night.